Let's unravel Geeta's world.
This entire student body that Donald Lu met are the ones who actually demanded Yunus to be appointed chief advisor.
Man, this one.
Yeah.
I mean, so it means that, we can't
We cannot say it for sure.
draw conclusions
we
right
can
now.
just state it out here and let
But
people
it
decide
just,
whether there
it's, did not happen all of a sudden.
No, it did not.
It was in the making, like you said
Yes,
rightly
it
last
was,
time.
It was.
Yeah.
And St. Martin's Island did play a role in how US wanted to steer.
Yeah.
Will BNP again, succumb to US pressure? I don't really know. I don't really know because over here there is another aspect. Has America been played by the Chinese? There are so many in the Bangladeshi Air Force and Navy, if not the army. So in the Bangladeshi military, who have made umpteen number of visits to China.
There were a lot of things that were going wrong, but India never raised those concerns about these developments. If it did so also, Geeta, we did not hear of
See, they officially very plainly said that we hope for peaceful, free and fair elections in Bangladesh, but they never criticized Sheikh Hasina because Sheikh Hasina is very important or was very important for India.
Do you think if India had intervened at the right time and convinced Sheikh Hasina to adopt more, democratic methods in dealing with protesters, the situation wouldn't have come to such
I don't think so. After a point, it had taken a political turn, and the demand no longer was about quota.
Well, this is the 100th episode of Geeta's
Yay!
World. Finally.
Finally.
100 and counting, Geeta.
100 and counting. Yes.
Soon 500.
Many more to go.
1,000.
Yes, absolutely.
But then I really want to thank you, Geeta, for being so generous, kind enough to lend us your time because I remember this is how we started. You were in Russia, Ukraine, covering the war, and we were waiting for you to come back because we just...
And that's when we planned this.
Right.
And no, why be generous? This is a great spot for us to put things in perspective. We see a lot of news that's done and misinformation that's spread. So for me, this is a great space to actually come and talk about things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're always correct, but to share perspective on things and why and contextualize stories, you see.
Right.
Put it in context. So
That's
it's been
true.
great. It's been a great journey, great ride. 100th episode, a lot of appreciation, well-taken criticism as well.
Yeah.
Constructively taken criticism. We're trying to improve on a few things that we've heard or read our viewers and listeners say. So
Right. The last episode, Bangladesh had like a flurry of comments. And we understand that because, it's not like black or white. It's always grayish. It's not like what we are saying. It's like, it's gospel's truth. So there will be differences. And also on the fact, I just want to add that because, say, Geeta's World, we have completed 100 episodes. But I also take pride in the fact that we have also dealt with issues that often escape the mainstream headlines. Like, for example...
mainstream headlines here, in their own countries, there'd be big news.
Of course.
But it escapes.
For example, Sudan crisis. For example, the drought over there.
Famine.
The famine. We did not know this. The Niger coup. Or the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict. I think that did...
Yes. That was covered quite a bit because wars and conflicts now get covered.
Right.
But internal strife, civil war, civil unrest, those many times escape mainstream media.
Yeah.
So we've managed to cover that, cover ground on very critical issues that impact the world in directly or indirectly. And we managed to do that. So,
I think we should also curate a list of our favorite episodes in the 100
we
episodes.
Yes.
Yeah, and then...
we should do that.
Because I never asked you this.
But we could do that as maybe end of the year.
Actually. Yeah.
talk about our favorite episodes. I mean,
Right.
you talk of yours and I talk of mine.
Yeah. We'll do that. So this week also we are discussing Bangladesh because last time actually when we had recorded it was just like it had just been a day because Monday it happened last week that Sheikh Hasina had fled to India, and Tuesday we were recording. So certain angles and issues, like for example there was one person who commented that why are you not exploring the US issue, the US involvement, but that came later. I mean we
No,
were
it was there,
yeah, it
but
was there,
and we
but the
touched upon it. But why of it, the strategic aspect, maybe
yeah,
we'll discuss today.
yeah,
And also, sometimes when the news is breaking, you focus on the news. The
right.
news was what happened, what is the quota policy all about, what was that agitation, did Sheikh Hasina go wrong or not? But today we can talk about exactly what was transpiring in the past few years for it to come to this.
Exactly, yeah. And for that, I think let's begin by answering this fact that last time you said that, peace, I mean, prevailing peace would be the biggest challenge for the military then and now a caretaker government under Mohammed Yunus. Uh, and you also said that you added that, the protesters don't have a reason to continue now because Sheikh Hasina has fled. You have,
And the quota policy,
the quota
in fact,
policy.
was taken back during her government itself, which
Exactly.
is why we questioned why did it continue.
Continue, yeah, right. So, but then what we are seeing right now, it has snowballed into, the atrocities against the Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. The Daily Star, which is a Bangladesh's daily, and it stated that Hindu houses and businesses were attacked in 27 districts on 5th August itself. And almost 70% of total districts saw targeting of Hindu homes. In fact, there was a Hindu report as well, which says that at least two Hindu organizations in Bangladesh and members of minority community have faced at least 205 attacks across 52 districts.
So I interviewed the Human Rights Watch Deputy Director, Meenakshi Ganguly, and for South Asia. And she said that before Sheikh Hasina fled, and these are unofficial reports, you cannot confirm data because government has not put out those numbers yet. She said about 300 to 400 people had died in a span of whatever weeks, where the protests were taking place and the high-handedness of Hasina administration.
Yeah.
But in the span of those few days after Sheikh Hasina, it was just about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Span of those 3 or 4 days that Sheikh Hasina left and resigned, there were 200 deaths. So in a matter of a few days itself, they had more deaths than, in the beginning of the protest that took place, because the total number of deaths before amounts to about 400 unofficially. Some say 300, but over here it's about over 200.
Irony is that Sheikh Hasina, in a purported letter, we don't know if she has written because her son has denied it, but then she has said that if I would have, I mean, I had resigned. I resigned, but then if I had stayed, there would have been more deaths, which I did not want, and that's why I resigned. But then the deaths are not stopping, the killings are not stopping. So
It's just that who is being targeted now, that has changed.
That has changed, right?
Although the 200 deaths that we're talking about are not all minorities. They're Awami League supporters, Awami League leaders themselves. So
Yeah.
homes of businesses who gained or flourished during the Hasina regime.
Yeah. But then, like, questions should be asked, right, Geeta, that why? Because now the interim leader is Mohammed Yunus, so questions will be posed against him. The violence is not stopping. We are seeing visuals, images, they're like really disturbing. And I mean, I'm not demeaning it, but then there are fake news as well, which we should be aware of. But it doesn't mean that attacks are not happening. They are happening. And let's also compare. I'm not equating the two here in the same breath, but let's also factor in Aung San Suu Kyi, who was Myanmar's leader, and she was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And here we also have a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Not equating again, but then she also
I
couldn't,
mean, whether if you equate or not,
yeah,
Aung San Suu Kyi's record when it comes to Muslims of her own country has been
it's a
quite abysmal,
right.
quite bad.
So what is it that, we are not able to curb it? It's been almost 10 days, I mean 7, 8 days.
I
So,
think because there is no law and order per se, and the situation exists because there are no administrative heads in place right now. A lot of them quit, a lot of them left, a lot of them have gone underground because they were all considered Sheikh Hasina's people. So, which is why in the streets, and we have a reporter on the ground, Ashutosh, he has been
yeah.
reporting, in the streets of Dhaka, there were kids, college students, who were volunteering to direct traffic because there are no cops in the
Wow.
streets. So, like Dr. Yunus said, that
Right.
when we have all this in place, and I was interviewing the BNP General Secretary, who's going to be a very important man should there be elections and whenever the elections are held. He's the BNP General Secretary, Fakhrul Islam Alamgir. So, Mirza Alamgir actually said that once we have administrative heads in place, once we have the law and order, personnel in place, the things on the ground will return to normal. Although, yes, I do know that, from reports that are coming in, they're trying very hard for normalcy to return. Dr. Yunus, I don't think imagined that the
Yeah.
violence will be this bad
He has said that
because
he'll resign.
the Jamaat is the Jamaat.
Yeah.
So they have been going after and they have been targeting Hindus. Again, Fakhrul Islam Alamgir said that why do you keep saying BNP and Jamaat in the same breath? It's not like we're going to fight elections together. They have a very different ideology. We have a very different ideology. So so BNP is trying to create its own niche where it wants to look and seem inclusive. And why do I say that is because to get all the support from America and come and then look divisive will not go down well for
Of
them or for
course.
Washington, D.C., although D.C. denies any
Yeah.
contact. But the fact is that if you go through all the meetings that have taken place, and I'll enumerate them for you,
Yeah.
you'll see the connect.
No, let's try to understand that because US's involvement, I think, months before actually Sheikh Hasina, like she left and she fled to India, this had, come up in the forefront, and there's a purported letter which states, and just want to quote that, where she has said that, allegedly said that I could have remained in power if I had surrendered the sovereignty of Saint Martin Island and allowed America to hold sway over the Bay of Bengal. And I beseech to the people of my land, please do not be manipulated by radicals. Well, months before her exit, I mean, she said that she claimed that conspiracies were being hatched to topple her government, and also alleged that a white man's plot, there was there to carve a new Christian country out of Bangladesh and Myanmar. So, first, is it true? Second, we know that St. Martin's Island has dominated Bangladesh politics. I read up and I found that, since the country's creation in 1971, its proximity to the Bay of Bengal and the maritime, boundary with Myanmar, it has led to, international interest, particularly, of course, from the US and China. And there is also a war between, I mean, not a war, but a conflict between Bangladesh and Myanmar regarding,
That is not to do with sovereignty or ownership. It has to do with delimitation of the
delimitation.
waters.
Yeah, right.
That how much can they go, their fishermen go or not go,
Because
and
it's a
which is why Bangladeshi fishermen often get detained by the Burmese or the Myanmar
Yeah.
forces.
Forces, yeah.
Having said that, but it's a Saint Martin's is not something that comes up only now. It's not a recent phenomenon. It is something that goes back years, and you in this entire war of supremacy in the region, or war for supremacy in the region between the U.S. and China. Bangladesh has become geopolitically and geostrategically very, very important, which is why China already has made a lot of inroads,
Yeah.
and U.S. tried very hard, and St. Martin's is part of that entire politics.
Okay.
So when you say Bangladesh politics has had a predominant feature in the United States of America and the China war and how the US wanted the space, it's not new. Sheikh Hasina, in fact, alleged that leveled allegations against BNP that they were willing to sell
Yeah.
the island to win elections. And BNP, while has denied it, so has Washington, D.C. White House has come out and said outrightly that there's been no interference. But they did. There were conversations about naval base in St. Martin's, and that's something that certainly is an aspect that should be looked at and looked into.
Yeah.
So what happened was that America wanted space in Bangladesh. America was not getting that hold as it would have wanted. And what happened in the process was somewhere around 2016, China went ahead and joined the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah.
The only country in this part, particularly, to have officially joined the Belt and Road Initiative, that did not go down well with US because they did not agree on becoming a part of the Indo-Pacific strategy of initiated by the US, or even part of Quad, or such smaller blocks.
Yeah.
But they willfully and willingly went ahead and joined the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, there are two things to it. America, of course, was riled, but so was India. India was concerned that Bangladesh going the China way, to which I think Sheikh Hasina government made it very clear that her priority in keeping India's interests intact and above all is or will remain unchanged, and which is what happened. So she'd make trips to China, but she would also engage India and make trips to India. And the connectivity projects between India and Bangladesh were far greater.
Right.
But economically, yes, she was striking that balance to ensure that her country's economy grows.
Right.
And since then, let me just enumerate the numbers over
Yeah.
here, or the number of visits.
Yeah.
So it began with the US imposing visa restrictions on some of the Bangladeshi leaders and individuals because of the way Sheikh Hasina had started conducting herself. Let there be no doubt over here that if this has happened to Sheikh Hasina, it wouldn't have happened if she was not, or if she hadn't become such an authoritarian leader. So because she was making mistakes, it was very easy for them to capitalize on those mistakes.
For the US to capitalize.
US and for the opposition BNP
Yeah.
to capitalize on those mistakes. If she would have been the democratic leader that she claims to be, and did not hold politicians prisoners, did not curtail press freedom, then there was no reason for BNP to say. And then, if they would have put up a quota policy and there were protests, she went back on it, it would have quietened. But there was a concerted effort to prove that Sheikh Hasina was becoming authoritarian, and she was giving reasons for them to prove it as well.
It's very important.
So what happened was, in 2023 of May, US started imposing restrictions. In July, Donald Lu, the US Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia, and Uzra Zia, the person who looks into the human rights, were involved in meetings in Dhaka, and there was tension there when they went.
Right.
Then again in October 2023, Donald Lu again condemned all the political violence. 2024 January, he again visited Dhaka, spoke about continuous US interest in Bangladesh's political situation. In May, again Donald Lu visited Dhaka, which included engagements with students, some of whom today can be identified as the influencers in the protests that took place.
Oh, yeah.
So he was engaging these activists and now protesters as well. And particularly what was important and interesting was that Donald Lu also met with the army chief, the very same man who gave Sheikh Hasina 45 minutes notice
Yeah.
to leave the country.
Yeah.
So, and again, any officer who goes to a foreign country does engage leaders, opposition, students, activists, but I'm just spelling it out. Now, the other angle that you have is there are WikiLeaks cables of 2007, and you see engagement of Professor Yunus with the United States of America, where he's actually seeking help from them with regards to the Sheikh Hasina government. That's when things were going down south for them. There's an email with from French President Nicolas Sarkozy saying that indicating that Sarkozy government planned to monitor and address Yunus's removal from the Grameen Bank, because back then when he was heading the Grameen Bank, he's the founder of Grameen Bank.
Yeah.
Sheikh Hasina removed him, and there were charges of corruption. But you see, the West had started looking at it. 2011, there's an email leak featuring correspondence between Hillary Clinton and her chief of staff, Cheryl Mills, again noting Yunus's involvement in an economic advisory board for Haiti.
Yeah.
And then there's a U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee report which accused Hillary Clinton of intervening on Yunus's behalf to halt corruption investigation in the Grameen Bank case.
Yeah, like apparently Yunus and Grameen organizations donated like really good hefty amount to
the
Hillary
Clinton
Clinton foundations. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
So you see, there is a lot of connect. Anybody can draw any conclusions. They can say that, well, we were doing it because we were concerned about the situation. But when you're concerned about the situation and you're engaging the opposition and aiding and making statements for the opposition and against Sheikh Hasina, in a way not really paying heed to India's interests, because in the long run this could mean not so good news for India, and India is a strategic partner of the United States of America, then it does become a concern. So yes, and finally this entire student body that Don Lu met are the ones who actually demanded Yunus as to be appointed chief advisor.
Man, this are...
Yeah.
I mean, so it means that, I mean, we can't like...
We cannot say it for sure.
Draw conclusions
we
right
can
now.
just state it out here and let
but
people decide
it all means that it not, I mean, everything not, did not happen all of a sudden.
No, it did not.
It was in the making, like you said
Yes,
rightly
it
last
was,
time.
It was.
Yeah.
And St. Martin's Island did play a role in how US wanted to steer.
Yeah.
Will BNP again, succumb to US pressure? I don't really know. I don't really know, because over here there is another aspect. Has America been played by the Chinese? There are so many in the Bangladeshi Air Force and Navy, if not the army. So in the Bangladeshi military, who have made umpteen number of visits to China. And so if they are to be, if they're still in control, if they're still part, because China is still an important part of Bangladesh, partner of Bangladesh, and BNP will not let go of China. Why? Because US came later, Anna. The original friends were Pakistan and China.
That's what I remember, Geeta. I remember when we were discussing the India Out campaign in Bangladesh. And I had asked you this, that who is getting their calculations wrong? The US is saying that, okay, we don't want to Sheikh Hasina. I mean, they think that a BNP, power, it would be
Sheikh
more
Hasina
favorable.
was not playing ball with the US.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's very much stated.
And BNP...
but then BNP, they are saying
BNP tweaked its policies to adjust both. Earlier it was Pakistan, China. Now they're looking at engaging the US, and which is why the BNP says, don't club us as part of this entire Jamaat BNP combine.
That's
because
why
they want to look liberal. They want to look inclusive. They are having trouble seeing what the Jamaat is doing. Okay. They are distancing themselves from the Jamaat. But in the long run, now when China turns around and says, well, what's happening? Then they'll have to again recalibrate.
Yeah.
And see whether if they want to...
So then they won't be selling the island to the US,
No,
right?
no. There's no selling. But
I mean,
even if they
airbase...
allow a US naval base, it'll be a huge thing. And I don't think China is going to let that happen very easily.
Yeah. But yeah, it's also
And I don't
interesting that
think Bangladesh right now, even BNP, after so much of emphasis by Sheikh Hasina, that it's because of St. Martin's, it's because of St. Martin's that
yeah,
BNP will have the political clout
yeah,
to make that move.
yeah. The I mean the like if you see in Pakistan what happened, like Imran Khan was in power and he did not so-called succumb to the US's so-called interests. He was ousted. Then Sheikh Hasina did not pay heed, so she
In
was
fact,
ousted.
it's interesting that you're saying this because, Imran Khan also named Donald Lu. In the
Really?
letter that was
Oh,
sent
really?
by one officer
Yeah.
to the Pakistani ambassador in DC, it was Donald Lu's letter that he was alleging
Mm.
that the officer was Donald Lu and he was the one who sent that letter, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, we are not concluding anything, but these are the facts if you look at the chronology, like Geeta pointed out. So, moving on from this, Geeta, let's also explore this factor because there's another podcast that we do with Raj Chingappa. And in his show,
Nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth, yeah. In his show, he dealt with with India's neighborhood policy and how it's failing. And I thought that I should also ask you this because you take Myanmar, you take Nepal, Sri Lanka, of course,
The
China's,
Maldives,
the Maldives, of
Afghanistan,
course,
Pakistan.
and it genuinely feels that it seems that the neighborhood policy is failing. So how does India then reinvent and this neighborhood policy, I mean neighborhood first policy, how does India do that?
See,
And
even as we speak, there are two important visits that took place. The Maldives, where Jaishankar was, the External Affairs Minister of India, and Nepal, where Vikram Misri was, the Foreign Secretary of India, the new Foreign Secretary of India. Looking at Bangladesh, I think they've realized that it is very important that they go to these places
yeah.
and re engage, especially the Maldives, which has been so anti India. But when it comes to financial help, assistance, development work, India is a better partner.
Definitely.
And Sri Lanka is an example.
Yeah, right. Actually, in the podcast, he has spoken to a lot many experts, and they said that one of them suggested that India should just go regressive, and a massive push towards economic, integration with its neighbors and a willingness to spend big bucks as China did with BRA can actually help
Everybody
BRI,
says
sorry.
that if you really want to be a world leader or Vishwaguru
Yeah.
that you want to be, you should be willing to invest not just political capital, economic capital as well. And in India's case, I think neither were being done very, very aggressively. Nor was there a lot of economic capital being invested.
Yeah.
Some, yes, but not very aggressively, especially when you're looking at conflict situations. But more so political capital as well.
So you think India should just replicate China's playbook and work towards.
I don't think so, because China's playbook is not something to be held up and said, let's emulate. Not a book to follow. It's a book
Ideally.
which has yes, because
Yeah.
it is exploitative, and India is not exploitative. I'm saying have a playbook on how China does it, but
Okay.
not what China does. The what has to be your own.
Very
Engaging, strategically seeing, thinking far ahead, not just your 5-year electoral term, far ahead into how to be entrenched in the neighborhood is something that India should be looking at and should be doing.
Yeah, right. So speaking of India, Geeta, and that's how we end this discussion. Because last time we spoke about how India shouldn't meddle in its neighbors or be it any other country's internal affairs and what exactly is internal affair because there's no clear-cut demarcation, right? So, but then I just thought that it's important to circle back to India in the sense that trying to understand how has this entire thing panned out for us. Sheikh Hasina right now is getting somewhat, everybody's sympathy, and perhaps rightly so as well. Still, I feel that we cannot deny the fact, like you said, that she was becoming increasingly an autocratic leader. People are saying that, okay, she came via elections. I mean, she was elected. So we can't say that, she
Yeah,
was not.
elected because the entire opposition boycotted.
No,
She
no,
did not have
no.
an interim government in place to conduct the free and fair elections.
No, actually, I remember somebody was saying that, look at Pakistan. PTI was, banned, but then all the independents, they fought and they won. So
And
why
there
did
was an
the.
interim government. They did do that because that's how they carry or conduct elections.
Right.
So the government in place, like in India, the government in place conducts the elections, right? That's the norm. But in Pakistan and Bangladesh, once the term is over, they have to form an interim government of independent people, thinkers, writers. I mean, whoever is very important in the political spectrum, but is not part of any politics or political party. They then form an interim government. Like in Pakistan, I remember Najim Sethi, who is a renowned journalist, also held or headed an interim government. So they should have done that and then conducted elections. She didn't do that twice or thrice over. So
Yeah. That's what I mean. But then the concern is that elections were, sort of not free and fair, sort of rigged. The opposition leaders were jailed, protests were clamped down using violent methods. There was a lot of, there were a lot of things that were going wrong. But India never raised those concerns about these developments. If it did so also, Geeta, we did not hear of
see,
that.
they officially very plainly said that we hope for peaceful, free, and fair elections in Bangladesh, but they never criticized Sheikh Hasina because Anna Sheikh Hasina is very important or was very important for India. Sometimes you also look at your own strategic interests, but then how will you ever be a larger country if you don't realize the mistakes that your neighbor is making, even if that neighbor is a very important one? To say, if you want to sit in that chair for a longer period, then you need to mend your ways, or your government needs to mend its ways. And that criticism, in so many words, did not come from India.
No, yeah, definitely.
And maybe that's why the first place, when she had a very short notice to leave and no other country was willing to allow her plane in, she landed in Delhi.
Right.
And she's been here in Ghaziabad at the Hindon Air Base ever since, waiting for maybe clearances, although her son says she's not sought asylum anywhere. They're strategizing and planning.
Yeah. No,
Should they announce elections? Will Sheikh Hasina go back? I mean, her son had said earlier no, but the letter says yes, and now the son also says that she will go back. So I don't know. Confusing signals from Awami League right now. I think they need to strategize and then plan their return, because when elections are held, Awami League is not a banned political party. They are going to contest, and their entire vote bank is has not completely been destroyed. She does have a vote bank. So let's see.
No, coming to India, like what I was asking, Geeta, that now the situation is such that Hasina is gone and Bangladeshi Hindus are pretty much in danger. So in hindsight, like how should we assess this situation? Because do you think if India had intervened at the right time and convinced Sheikh Hasina to adopt more, democratic methods in dealing with protesters, the situation wouldn't have come to
I
such
don't
a.
think so. After a point, it had taken a political turn,
Yeah.
and the demand no longer was about quota, which means that the issue for which the protests were taking place was anyway over.
Right.
It had become a demand that if this is what she's going to do, then we don't want an autocratic leader. And the demand was from a 9-point agenda, which is what the conversation and negotiations were between Sheikh Hasina and the students' body. It became a single point agenda that resign, step down. And after stepping down, it would have been impossible for her to stay on. But
No.
the breach of Gana Bhavan
Yeah.
and what they did clearly spells out and most of them over there were not students.
Yeah, right.
So it just spells out how political things had become
Yeah,
and how untenable it was for Sheikh Hasina to continue.
yeah.
And I don't think there was any quick fix solution that India could have provided at a time when there was growing distrust, mistrust of the administration, and therefore in certain quarters of India too. There was an India Out campaign that BNP started.
Of course, yeah.
And yes, it did catch
I mean, that
on.
should have been like an alarming thing.
It was.
That,
It
right?
was.
So
India was alarmed.
then granted that India may have talked
And they
to
were
Sheikh.
monitoring the situation. I just don't know whether if they handled it the best that they should
Yeah,
have.
I mean, if you're I mean, you may have talked to Sheikh Hasina behind closed doors, but and expressed about everything that is concerning India and whatever is happening. But when, for example, the US, it is, if the US is concerned about happenings in other countries, it holds press conferences and lets people know, the media know
Though they have a daily
that.
briefing, so questions are asked there. When we have a briefing, questions were asked, and the same was said that India wishes for a free, fair elections to be held in Bangladesh, so on and so forth. But internally, I think they were in touch with the US also on some breathing space for Sheikh Hasina, but not as much. And I don't know whether if they knew exactly how bad things were. I do think that things took an ugly turn.
Yeah.
And like in the Maldives, or for that matter in Afghanistan, the intelligence to a certain extent knew what was happening, but how and how fast it would take a turn where Sheikh Hasina has to leave, I think that was a miss.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you'd want to call it intel failure, but
Yeah.
something where India now has to introspect on how it wants to deal with its neighborhood.
Exactly.
Because many of them are not pro-India right now, and that certainly is not good for India. I mean, let's forget about the government. Governments come and go, but for
But-
India, it's not good.
For sure. And anyway, diplomacy runs in a continuum, like you.
So they say, but now I'm seeing a lot change. There have been quite a few shifts in how
Yeah.
India has been conducting itself, and how the continuity is in knowing exactly who to engage, but how to. I think that playbook has changed, and they need to, or changed, or needs to be modified.
Okay.
Because this entire playbook of engaging Sheikh Hasina irrespective didn't work for India.
Yeah, very true.
So they should have. So yes, strategize in what
Very
China
true.
does, how,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But China had both BNP and Sheikh Hasina, so they were better placed.
Yeah, that's true. I think we'll end on that note, and neighborhood policy, of course, how India is going to tackle that, because we have a government that will stay for the next 5 years at least. And so we'll have to see how that engagement will happen. And for Bangladesh, I think there's still unrest going on, and the atrocities is definitely condemnable. But how Mohammed Yunus is going to engage that and prioritize to ensure peace in Bangladesh, I think that's a.
He's actually quite upset and disturbed because I don't think he anticipated such kind of violence. There would have been violence, but such
But,
kind of violence, and he's been calling for calm. It's not happening. So let's see. Let's see, Anna, what really happens. We'll keep tracking the story.
Yeah.
It's a big story. So we'll keep coming back to you as and when there are developments and if there's a big story to tell.
Yeah, definitely, like we always do. And keep listening to Geeta's World, and keep tuning in. We read all your messages. The comment section is, flooded, and we love that. So keep writing to us also. We have a number which is 8588966996. And there's an email ID which is pods@indiatoday.com. This is the 100th episode, and we are going to start a different journey together.
Absolutely. And we'll celebrate
Yes.
the 100th together.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.